This is the first program from the chapter 6. In this program, we create a small object, and then we create the small class, and we created the objects of the small class. We take input and we uh, print the output. Now, first thing is that how to declare a class. So we already know that. So these two are directives, as I have discussed in previous class. So IOStream and using namespace std. So these two will be in every C++ program. After writing this, okay, normally we start with the main function. Okay, whatever inside the main function, that's not our concern for now, but we know that normally after the include IOStream and using namespace, we start with the main function. If I go to the code of the last class that we have done, let's assume this one. So here you see we started with using namespace std and IOStream, and then we started with the main function. So this was the code that we did in the last class. But here in this case, we start with the namespace IOStream, but then instead of main function, we write the class definition. So this part is the definition of the class. That means how your class will look like. That's it. Okay. Now, so now let's go to the class. So first what we do, we actually declare some variables. So here we have declared the variables as a private, so that we use the keyword with private dot then this sign. If you don't use private, it will also okay, it will also be okay, because whenever we don't define any type, okay, it automatically turns into a private. And then name of the class, it can, they have given a small object. You can name it A, you can name it B, you can name it anything you want. Okay, so this is that our integer sum data. Okay, and after that we have this public access modifier that actually suggests that these two functions that we see after this, okay, they are actually okay, let me put it this way. Okay, so this function, this public modifier suggests that these are actually a public function. That means they can be accessed from the main function. This private, they cannot be directly accessed from the main function. Why? Because this is a private. So private data or private variables or functions cannot be accessed directly from the main function. But if you declare a public variable, or you can declare a public function or public member, okay, in that case we can access it from the main function. Now then here what they did, they created two objects. As I have said, this is almost similar to the declaration of normal variables. Like if I want to declare integer, what I do, integer, let me write it down here. So if I want to declare integers, what I do, integer, let's assume integer a, b. So type of the variable, that is integer, and here the type of the variable is a small object because my class name is a small object. So we were using the class name here. Then s1, s2, two variables. Same way integer ab. So let me just cut it down here. Then we want to assign these two numbers, okay, to our show sum data. So what happens, we have now two objects. So first object will get s1 will get the value 1066, s2 will get the value, let me make it a simple value, 106, and s2 will get 776. So we are assigning two values to that, and then we are calling the show data function. So here we are calling the functions. The only reason we can call the function is because they are given public. If I change this, okay, they will not be, you will not be able to call these functions. So anyway, let's run this program and let's see what happens. So before running the program, whenever we call the set data function, okay, there is some whenever you copy from the compiler, there might be some syntax error, but don't worry. Okay, let's zoom it up and let's bring it side by side. So first what happens, we know that every C++ program start with the main function. So whenever the program starts in the main function, it declares two object of small object class. And when it does, okay, what happens, the compiler creates two objects, s1 and s2, and each object, okay, have an variable called small data, and have two functions. Now, initially, both of whenever these functions are created, okay, both of the variables are empty. So what we do, we call this set data function with 106 and 776. If you see that this data, first one data is 106, second is 776. That means the data that we are calling here are actually printed as an output. So what does set data function do? It takes this number 106 and then it assigns the number to the sum data function, and console output, it just prints the data. So this is very simple step, right? So let us modify the code. Now here, can I call s2 first instead of calling s2 and s1? Can I change the order? Yes, I can change the order and it will still work. You see, if I change the order, previously the output was 106 and 776. So now if I run the program, now the output is 776 first. So it doesn't matter that when how you call the function, there's no need to call them serially. Okay, just because the first object s1 was created first, okay, you can call it s1 anytime you want. You can call any function of s2 anytime you want. There should not be any order. The values that we pass here will go to the functions, the objects. Now another question can be, sir, what if I pass 1.5 here? Okay, what will happen? Okay, let's see what happens. You see, it's still, this is 106, because in the last class we have studied type conversion, automatic type conversion. That means, you see, this is integer, so the compiler is already converting it to a integer. So the topics that we have learned in the last class about white spaces, the type conversion, okay, variables like integers, their summary, all of them are applied here. Okay, so we will not go to into
Sir,
details right now. Yes. So even if you pass a double value, it will be again converted to integer, because this is an integer. So whatever value you take, it will convert it to integer.
স্যার,
Yes.
তখন প্রাইভেট প্রাইভেটটা দিব না তখন কি হবে স্যার?
Uh, okay. So what if I make it private? Okay. So let's assume that I don't want to make it public. Okay. I want to make it private. So in that case, what I can do, let's see. So let's make it private. Let's see, how can I access it? The answer is, you see, no. Now I cannot access it anymore. So what it says that is the oh wait, let me open it, make it here. See, now it's saying the void small object is private, so you cannot actually can access it. Now don't worry, there's a solution for that as well. Okay, like some of the functions we actually declare as a private, so you need another function to access this function. Okay, so we will discuss them as well, don't worry, but for now let's focus on this one. Okay, so this is the first program. I hope everyone, you have understood it. So now you should know how to declare a class, okay, and how to actually uh, create, okay, just a minute. Yeah, now you should know how to declare a class and how to actually create variables, objects of that class. And at the same time, uh, apart from declaring the class, you should also know how to take input and how to print. Now, what is it the only challenge declaring the class? The answer is no. As we go on, okay, our programs will get a little bit more complicated. Okay, we will face different type of challenges, okay, in the class. So for facing this type of challenges, we also have different mechanisms, so we will learn those mechanisms as well. Now let's go back to our book. So this is the first code that we are seeing. So simple class with the syntaxes, so we have already practiced it. Now the second one is that here they will explain how this all work. So just go through it. We have already talked about how class and objects work, how the class is defined. Now private and public. So this is already we discussed that private means you cannot access directly. Public means you can access from any part of the code. So private data and functions can only be accessed within the class. Public data and functions, on the other hand, are accessible from outside of the class. That means the main function. Hidden from who? So as we say that the data that is it's a feature that we use in public private is called data hiding. Okay, so we actually, what we do, we actually apply a restriction or hiding in the data, so that if not all the variables can access the data. So the question is hidden from who? Because we can still access the data, right? There is like initially we could access directly, but right now I have to go through a function, but still I can access it. So here is the question: don't confuse data hiding with the security techniques used to protect computer database. So they are saying that this is actually not the same as the security techniques. To provide security, okay, the measure we might, for example, require user to supply a password before granting access to the database. Okay, so that password is meant to keep unauthorized or malevolent users from altering the data. So the security measures is one thing, but data hiding on the other hand means hiding data from parts of the program that don't need to access it. So this is the main reason. Sometimes what happens in C, whenever you write a project, okay, you will face this situation that the data, if you for some reason if you declare some variable global, that means that can be accessed from anywhere. Some other part of the program can access the data as well. Okay, so more specifically, one class data is hidden from another class. So like if you have two classes, one class is less student, another class is let's assume teachers. So student class data will be hidden from teachers class data will be hidden from student class. So data hiding is designed to protect intentioned programs from honest mistakes. So this is another point. So in data hiding, you will not make any mistake as well. Your program is safe from other classes, because if you want to access, suppose let's think about the student management system. Okay, now I have given you a class that you can see your results. Okay, so you have a access to one class, but now if you want to access to the teachers class, okay, you cannot do it. Why? Because the variables you have, the functions you have, okay, and the objects you have, they can only access to the variable of student class. So you can see students information, you can see students uh, results, but you cannot access teachers, or you cannot access the administration classes. In this way, all those parts are actually hidden from you. So programmers who really want to figure out a way to access private data, they will find a way to. But here's the thing, that if you still, is it 100% 100% secure? The answer is no. Those who are good programmers, they will still find a way to access the data, but it's still safe. Now let's go to the next program.
Sir, your mic is muted.
As I was saying, then we have this different types of variables. We have seen that we can declare one variable here, okay, or you can declare 10 variables. So it depends on my program, right? If I writing a small program, I will have say 1 to 10 variable. If I write a huge program, I will have 1 to 10 variable, 1,000 variables. Same way goes for the function. These two functions are only for setting the data and showing the output. There can be some other functions for doing some other job as well. Now let's go back to the code. So as you can see that we have already talked about the member functions. So member functions are functions that are included within the class. They're also called methods. So don't get confused if you hear this name. That's what is a method. Okay. In some of the places, we use this traditional name as well. And in the functions, we actually use the braces to delimit. That means that if I talk about this member function, the limitation of that member function is from this bracket to this bracket. Okay, so if you want to do something with this member function, you have to write the code inside this. I think you already know it. So this is all about the functions. Now, functions are public, data is private. So for now, for normal programs that we will do, okay, in throughout this course, we will use this simple case. Okay, we will make sure that our data variables are private, all the variables are private, and the functions that we have, all the functions are public. In this way, it will be a bit easier for us. So here is an example. So here they have created a class, okay, name is f00foo, and variables are private, okay, and then the functions are public. You can also again create a private function as well, but it's easier to maintain for now public functions. Now, member functions can be also within the class definition, or you can write the definition outside of the class. So let's go back and see this same code. So here what we did, we have written the definition inside the class. But sometimes what happens, like let's assume that you have a program that is actually huge. So let me format this code first here. So this now looks better. Now you have a huge program, okay, and each of the functions are huge. So instead of writing the function name inside the class, okay, let's assume this is a code. So let's assume these are the lines of the code, okay. Now here what you can say, if you want to see that, okay, what is this function class is all about, you have to scroll. And then again, let's assume this is also another 10-line code. Let me copy it. So it might happen, right, as we do complicated tasks, our functions can be huge. So like this is a like, oh, how many lines of code? 117 line of code. We have two huge functions that do a lot of work. Now if I want to see what is my class is all about, I have to scroll a lot, okay. So instead of doing this, okay, so some cases, to maintain a easy look for the class, what we do, we actually write the definition of the function outside of the class. And we have seen this in our last classes as well. So what we'll do, we will let's copy the function name and write it outside. I will go to the details later. Then let's just close this one. There's no need to write anything, just modifier that this is a function. And then here we have to also set which class it is from. So I have written the function here and I have given a semicolon here. That means, okay, I have this function, and then I will do it for this one as well, okay. Then here I have written the definition of the function. So let's see whether it works or not. You see, it doesn't work. Why? The problem is, if I go to the here, some data was not declared in the scope, so it cannot access it, okay. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to tell the compiler that this is the part of this class, so that the compiler can understand, okay, I am taking this variable, taking this function as a part of this class. So how we can do it, we have already seen in the last class. We can actually add class name to this one. So this is how we can declare the functions outside of the class as well. So anyway, let's resume for now. This is not important for now. Okay, now let's go back to our code. So here we have this second part. So here we only had how many in the first program. Now we'll talk about the widgets. uh, so previous on case, the small object class in the last example had only one data item, that is this one. Where is it? We only have this some data, okay, so only one variable. But as we have said, that sometimes there can be more than that, right? So let's look at another example. So I will copy this one. Let me give me a second to copy it. And for you guys, I will suggest that initially copy the name, but if possible, type it on your own, okay, after you understand the code. So in that case, it will help you to actually remember the part of the code. You don't have to memorize most of it. So this is the second code from chapter 2. So if you type it on your hand, you'll find C++ as one of the most easiest programming language. Wait, what happened? What does 223 means? Okay, I think there's some type. Let me just remove. Okay, now it should work, and yes, it's working. So it's showing the output, the model 6244, part 373, and cost 270. Okay, let's go to the code and first try to understand why we are having this output. So let's see what we did here. We first created a class called part. Okay, Then in the part, we had three variables: integer model number, integer part number, integer cost. And then with this three variable, we actually took three input. Okay, in the first case, let me close this one. We only had one variable, so that's why in this function, set data function, we took only one input. And in the show data function, we printed one input. But here we have how many variables? Three. So we will take three input, we'll assign three input, and we'll print this three input. Okay, so that's it. Okay, and then here in this one, we'll first create an object. Okay, let's make it simple. Okay, let's make it x. It's easier for us to understand. So x dot set part, x dot show part. So let's run the code again, and you see this works totally fine. So now let us practice one more. Yeah, sure. So what is the difference between the first code and this one? In the first code, we only had one variable. So we have seen how to write the function for take input of one variable, how to write the function to print one variable. But now we will see another program that will show us that instead of one variable, what if we have multiple variable, more than one? So what changes will I have in my program? So the first change is that we have declared the variables. Okay, in this part, there's nothing, no other changes, just we have written the names. Here in the function, previously, we have taken only one input. If you look at this one, only one input, right? But now, how many inputs we have? We have three inputs because we have three variables. And same way in the output function, that show part, in it previously, we had only one console output, but now we have three console output. And here initially we had passed only one variable. If you look at the last, okay, but in this case we passed three variables. So just in case of the variable number increases, okay, the function will just change a little bit. The structure, if you see, the basic structure is still the same. Okay, are we clear about this?
Yes, sir.
Now you have to write a program, you have to modify this program. Okay, so what it does, it actually supports this case. So you write a program that instead of taking a model number, part number, and cost, it will take a student's name, ID, and CGPA, and then print them. So this is the same code from the 6.2 from the book, just I am changing the variable. Okay,